Hi, it's Jen from Shabby Fabrics. We recently introduced the Hope Blooms beautiful block of the month quilt designed by Brenda Riddle using her Ellie collection by Moda. And well, we wanted to be able to do our supporting video right now. So if you saw that quilt come out and maybe you didn't sign up because you thought maybe that was too much tracing and cutting and didn't realize this is actually prefused laser cut, or maybe you've never done applique or you're entirely new to quilting. I'm here to let you know that all of those excuses, just push those to the side, and I'm going to show you today that this quilt is so approachable even for a beginner. I love that. None of all the tracing and cutting that in the past would have been really just a really long chore, multiple days in fact, of tracing all of this and cutting this in such delicate shapes and never as precise, of course, as the precision of a laser. So I love that. Every now and again, I hear a person say, laser cut is cheating. You know what laser cut is? Completion. So don't let anybody shame you for using a laser cut kit. It results in beautiful quilts, and you know what? It ends up completed. I have so many of those UFOs, unfinished objects at home, and I know you do too. So if you haven't grabbed your spot by the end of this video, or even now, head over to the website. You're going to see that being able to participate this is going to be a lot of fun. And while you're there, get the backing. This is beautiful backing and the threads. I'll touch on that again as we go through our tutorial here. When you get your kit, you have enough background that you can leave that background oversized to 11 by 11. The blocks do finish at 10, but we're going to keep that block oversized. Then we're going to put all the applique down, and then we'll trim that up later. That always results in a more precise quilt when you can trim up the blocks so as they're sewing together, they're just clicking in like a puzzle. Some of the things I didn't necessarily realize as an early quilter. So once you have your backgrounds cut to 11 by 11, one of the first things that you want to do is first identify the right side of this fabric. The white on whites can be tricky. I have definitely missed that before, where I thought I was on the correct side of the fabric, only to then flip it over and realize, oh no, I just appliqued everything to the wrong side of that fabric. When it's a print that's blue or yellow or whatever, that's easy, but those whites on white can be a little bit tricky. So I'm going to first confirm I have the right side, and I do. It's subtle. Sometimes if you put it against a darker fabric, it becomes more obvious. Once you have that, fold in half, both directions, to find the center. The reason that we're doing that is on Brenda's diagrams here, she gives us that X marks the spot. That's going to be key for us as we lay all of the applique pieces onto the background. And I'm just going to show you that little X right there. I'm going to put that X right over top of her X. Now I can't see it that well because I don't have my light box out yet. But let's go ahead and bring the light box out now, because for any shapes that overlap each other, I want to be able to merge those together before I bring them onto the background. That saves us time and increases our accuracy. So let's just look at some of our quilt blocks. Here, I'm not going to bring that flower on as 3 separate pieces. I will pre-assemble those using the wafer light box, the diagram, and the applique mat. So that will be merged as a unit. Same with this, same with this, same with this. These individual leaves, they don't have a role to play yet. They're not layered, right? But any time that you see layering, such as these 3, or what we're going to be working on today, let's take advantage of that technology. So sometimes certain applique projects that are heavily layered, oh, this is absolutely a very essential part of this. This is more of a convenience. You could do this project without a light box, but if you've got that resource, use it. I always say, if you've got the resource, use it. If you need the resource, buy it, right? Okay, so how does all of that work? First thing we'll do is start heating our iron up to a medium heat. As quilters, we're used to cranking that thing all the way up to cotton, linen, the hottest setting we can, because we want our seams to be lying nice and flat. But anytime we're working with fusible webbing, it really can't tolerate that extreme heat and as much prefers a medium heat. So these are the flowers here. Let me just show you the shapes that we have. As you're looking at this here, let me just point this out. What are all these numbers about? The numbers are your guide, your roadmap to which piece will lay down first. And I appreciate that. Sometimes applique diagrams have no juxtaposition. There's no numbering sequence. Now this is quite obvious, but I've done projects far more complicated that had 5 and 6 layers and probably 50 or 60 different applique pieces in one block. And it wasn't very obvious what should go down first, what should go down next. And I absolutely got some of those wrong. And then I'm trying to unstick them and made a mess. So these numbers are definitely your guide to piece number 1 goes first, piece number 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6, and all the way around. Why that's significant is that's letting us know that piece number 3 will lay down, followed by piece number 4. And you can see visually that makes sense, right? The flower is back and the leaves are in the front. These dashed lines let you know that the dashed portion is the part that lies behind another. It just helps you, again, have that visual understanding of the layering sequence and what that site picture should look like. So what we are going to do right now is we will create, we know right now, if I iron that down as we speak, that's going to iron to my paper. Can't happen, right? Now what do? This is the magic of the Applique mat. This creates the barrier so that we can see through. I'm going to turn the light box on. I can see through here to see my shapes to be able to place them. I will merge them on the Applique mat. They'll cool down and I'm going to peel that off. There'll be no residue. It's incredible. Now, as you can see, the Applique mat inhibits our view and makes it difficult to see the numbers. What's the solution I recommend? Get your camera. I know you have that, your cell phone. Just take a photo of that. Just take a photo and you can reference that. That way you're not having to pull up and peek and pull up and peek and see where the next shape goes down. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to lay these pieces down. I'm going to press them on here. The Applique mat has a grip to it. It's really cool because there's a lot of what's called applique sheets that are on in the industry. Now look at this. Notice this is not coming off here. There's a grip to this. This is one of the reasons I keep my Applique mat rolled up and I keep that Slap and Wrap Peels by the Gypsy Quilter. I think that is the name. So keep this rolled up so that it keeps its tackiness. Now, if it loses its tackiness, they claim you can run this right through your dishwasher and it'll have the tackiness again. So if you love applique, just get the Applique mat. It comes in 2 different sizes, depending on what project you're working on. Sometimes I use both sizes on a project, but this is only the smaller one is needed. So I just continue to lay out these shapes. As you can see here, it's really these 4 right here that are layered. You could certainly do the centers of these right now if we want. We can certainly do that. These don't go down. They're not layered on top of anything. That is not something that I would iron down because I'd just be picking it back up. So let me keep laying this out. Then I will move everything to my wool pressing mat and iron things down, straight down with the iron, about 5 to 6 seconds to let all of the glue merge. The 2 shapes become one. And again, if I want to go now and start laying these out, we can do that. Or you can just find the centers later. Now, these are interesting. Brenda did not draw a symmetrical flower here, so I have to find that, or I just go for it, right? I can keep turning this to find the perfect spot that I think it is, or I go, you know what, I'm happy with that. Now, I like things precise, so I'm going to keep turning that. Now, tweezers. these small little centers can be very difficult to grab, and that's where these tweezers come into play. So I'll just keep laying everything out, including these blue flowers, and then I'll move that over, iron, and I'll come back as I'm ironing down. I want you to see how I press straight down and just let go of the iron. Don't, because we're so in the habit, right, of ironing our clothes, you could do that just out of habit. So I'll get everything placed down, and then I'll meet you at the iron. All right, so I'm moving this carefully. Straight down. Just straight down. I've made that mistake of keeping my hand on it, and guess what happens? It just starts moving. Somebody comes in the room, I'm talking, and I'm just, when I was flying, you know, my uniform shirts had to be perfect. So I was ironing a lot. And so it was hard to break that habit because you're just used to, you know, the collars and the back and everything had to be perfect for my shirt. So it was hard to not do that motion. All right, now here's the next thing. I get so excited every time I do applique that sometimes I don't wait for this to fully cool down and I start peeling things up. Well, just like anything, these things not only, they keep in mind, that had glue and that had glue. That glue was activated when we held the iron down. It's now merging as one, but it has to cool to be able to complete that merging process. So do yourself a favor, maybe go do work on something else and come back and make sure that's completely cool. I've absolutely pulled that up. Parts were coming apart and it was really a mess of my own creation. Once you feel like you've got that ready to go, then you can literally peel this off and now two pieces become one. It's just incredible how we can get this done. You know, everything is exactly in the position it should be in. And now you're bringing less individual pieces onto the background. All right, so I'll keep peeling these off. So if you've never appliqued before, if you haven't now already seen, oh, this is not rocket science, you're correct. This is called science, but not rocket science. Whoever came up with this mat and this process, that is a pretty special situation. Now, we really don't need the Applifuse mat anymore because the rest of it will be done directly onto the block background itself. So I'm going to go ahead and roll this up and get that all taken care of. It's nice and tidy in my sewing room. All right. So we talked about where's this bullseye. We know where our bullseye is located. And remember how we said, all right, we know that that number one is here. This is, again, where the process of having that photo to refer to is going to be pretty handy. Now, you could try to lay out all the pieces or lay out only till it gets uncomfortable and you want to start ironing things down. Now this one, I should have mentioned this, to just get that fusible off the back, I just give it a nice crease. And paper comes right off. The first thing that I'm going to do before I even put any flowers down is I want to secure that X. Everything is built off of that. I could add more things right now. I'm not going to do that. I just want to get this well established. That's just years of learning, where I tried to put down way too many things, and either when I moved it, something slipped. I misunderstood the layering sequence on a diagram that wasn't numbered, and I just have learned, take this in bites. It's fun, right? Get yourself established. You're like, okay, my X marks the spot. I know I'm in a good spot. And you can see now, really, we can start adding all of our elements. We don't have to follow the sequence when the shapes are not touching each other. That doesn't really matter anymore. if this was the mountains in the back and the rivers in the front and the trees are in the front and the house, yes, that matters. You must follow that sequence. But now it doesn't matter whether I put that flower down or that leaf down. You're just now laying things down. So I'll continue building our site picture. Look at that. It's already beautiful. We haven't even stitched anything down yet. And again, just that, put the iron down, back away, count to 5, 6. Okay, you get the idea. If you've been wanting to do applique but dreading the tracing and the cutting, or I don't know how to get all the pieces in the right place, as you can see, this is a very repeatable process, and you do not need to be an accomplished quilter to have beautiful results. All right, once that's all down, at that point, this is when we used our thread set to coordinate, of course, thread. We'll just zoom in on the blocks here. For the most part, we're just stitching very close to the edge with a straight stitch. And you may be wanting to let your personality come out, maybe do a blanket stitch or a decorative stitch. That's when you get to be you and let us see your personality. And that's what makes your quilt different than ours. Let me call your attention to something else on Brenda's diagram, and it's right here in each of these corners. We have 2 leaves and a circle, and then the opposite corner are pinks and blues. But notice how they're set in the corner so beautifully, and this is a pro tip from Tammy. The diagram that Brenda provides us mentions to set that 11 by 11 inch block in the corner and then put this applique on. I would recommend a different approach, and I'm going to show you the approach we took, and that's because we wanted the block perfectly squared up before we set that in there. Because let's look at this. Initial cutting line is 11 by 11. Final cutting line, 10.5 by 10.5, and the finished block size. What we're going to do, I'm going to do this with you, is I'm going to trim up this block to a 10.5 by 10.5, and wouldn't you know that Creative Grid, being who they are, does an amazing job at creating rulers that serve not just how to measure, but where to find that center, which is very important to us. Now let's look at this here, right in the very middle of that ruler. Do you see that right there? That bullseye, that circle. So I'm going to be lining this up along that green stem, but I'm going to put that circle right in the middle of that circle. Remember, we found that center. There's a reason we found that center, and that's coming into play right now. So I'm setting that circle right over top of that. And notice how my line is going right down my stem, left to right. This is that location. I'm going to check it one more time. Notice that's going to the tip of that flower. That's going to the tip of that flower. I want you to notice something. Notice how I'm trimming off more from this side than the other side? Just is. That's how this ended up laying out. That's why we felt it was more accurate to trim now. Then we'll go use this little diagram in the corner and we'll do that final applique. So just to be clear, before we trim this up, we did stitch all of our applique down. That happened on all of our blocks. We trim our block to 10.5, which I'm going to do right now, and you're going to see why we're absolutely in love with our spinning mat. This is not the time to lift up a block. Once you find the sweet spot, You want to do 4 things. Trim 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? You do not want to lift this block up. So we're going to make a cut, rotate, rotate, that's the beauty. Not just the beauty of perfect cutting, but I've seen all kinds of crazy things. I've seen people cutting under their arms, cutting back to themselves, switching to another hand. Don't do any of that. I've got a few cuts to prove it. I've tried that. Bad idea. Just invest in the spinning mat. Once you have this perfectly trimmed up to 10.5, now this is when we set this into the corner, just like that. And we now know it's a perfect corner. And I can actually see where those shapes go. I don't even need to turn the light box on because I can see through it. And you might need me to turn on so you can see it. I'm lining that up. And then here we go with our shapes in the corners. Another one. I think I'm going to use my tweezers, a little bit easier. And depending on blue or pink, so you want to know what side of the block you're on. And then once again, off to iron that down, right? No mystery on that one. But that approach really seemed to give us the most precise results, so that because we wanted these to really be creating this perfect little grid here, separating all the beautiful blocks. If I haven't convinced you, let me try it one more time. If you have been waiting to get in a block of the month, you've been wanting to have a beautiful quilt to display or give as an incredible housewarming gift, maybe even a wedding gift, don't delay. Get to the website. We have limited spots remaining. There's other clubs as well, block of the month you could join. But if it's this one, be sure to grab your spot, the beautiful backing, the thread set. Grab any notions you might need. Subscribe, let your friends know as well, and I'll see you soon on another Shabby video.